Hey everyone, it's Mr. Critics. Today I'll be giving you guys a small tour through the development of the Super Mario project. So, the Super Mario project is something I've been developing since November of 2022. I posted a video about it a while ago showcasing a couple of screenshots. Now I'm going to give you guys a deeper look into each scene and talk about each scene's development and the future plans for the project. Before we get into it though, I need to explain why this is being made in the first place. It all started a few months ago when I decided to pick up a new skill in modeling. I decided that a Super Mario level would be a good personal project to improve with. Constantly wanting to learn new skills and improve is something I've just loved to do on my own time, so I thought, why not? One day, an insane idea hit me. How hard would it be to create an entire explorable Mario world? Little did I know that this one idea would have me embark on this 3-month ongoing journey. What you will see today is the early development stages for the project. These are nowhere near finished, but they are the concepts for the actual final scenes that are in current development. The end goal here being an animated tour showcasing each scene in action with full environmental animation. Today, I am going to be covering the modeling process, the assets for the models, the scenes, detailing and texturing, and my references as well. I should also mention that I didn't model everything in the scene myself, but we'll talk about those more when we come across them. I will mention, however, that due to me not making every model, you will see different variants of the same model, such as the pipe or the mushroom that have gone through constant remodeling. With that being said, let's get into the first scene. Here is the first ever scene that I started to develop. This scene is where all the first screenshots were taken. If you're wondering what's going on with the lighting, it's because rendering this scene and trying to move your perspective around to get a better view would just make the scene lag like crazy. See, I made the huge mistake early on in modeling when I subdivided every model to make them super smooth and clean. This raised the amount of polygons in each model, meaning that everything had over 12,000 polygons each that were being rendered at full resolution. That's not even including the grass that was in the scene. This made my GPU almost explode and I couldn't open the project at one point due to the project using up 7 GB of RAM when looking at just the models without textures. This meant that every model had to be reduced to a more polygonal version of itself to save up more space. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, you don't need to know any of this. Just know that all the models used to be so big that it's why walking around the scene today is pretty choppy. To this day, optimization is still being worked on, so the project should be able to run much more smoothly in the near future. Speaking of smooth, let's check out this smooth criminal over here. This bad boy is one of the imported models I mentioned earlier. This chain chomp was initially an imported Super Mario Odyssey model before I designed a model my own. The only remaining part of the Odyssey model is the chain holster on the back of the chomp and the chain links themselves. I could have made my own version, but I'm not nearly as skilled as I need to be in order to pull that off, so this import is the placeholder until I can learn to do so. Another thing I wanted to mention is the fact that most of the models weren't even textured right in the beginning, and that was because I didn't learn how to assign different materials to different planes on each model yet. That's why some of the metal blocks looked a little bit weird in some of the early progress pics. At one point, I got so fed up with it, I only modeled half a metal block and just stuck it in the ground with 4 little prongs poking out of the bottom of the map. This was later fixed along with every other model, which is why they look much better now. But that just about wraps up this level. Let's go ahead and jump over to the next scene. Alright, so here we are in what I like to call the pipe scene. This scene is the first to use an asset library for the vegetation. It turned out to be easier to use a grass asset instead of trying to generate the grass myself with excessive grass particles, and it was easier to manipulate to create grassy hills. Not only that, the assets were much better than any grass I could try to model myself, so it ultimately ended up looking better and running much smoother in the process too. I also decided to add in some more details like grassy boulders and other plants to give the scene a bit more variety. At the start of the scene's development, the asset library wasn't being used yet, and so I only used 2 forms of vegetation. The generated particle grass I made to reduce the overworld scene, and the leaves in the piranha plant model. Again, the pre-made assets looked much better, and so the piranha plant bush is now gone from the scene. And the grass is now fully replaced, which you can now see in the intro animation you guys saw earlier. Another thing I wanted to point out was the object placements for the environment. In the first scene, I ended up creating a sort of clumped up area with tons of pipes and blocks everywhere. This scene, however, I wanted to show off a more natural, almost field-like path. This scene is what really got me to pay attention as to what I was trying to showcase and just how much I was actually supposed to be modeling. Yes, there was mushrooms and brick blocks in the scene, but they were all randomly placed with no real sense of purpose, and the mushrooms in the previous scene were just kind of there, not really in a place where they'd look like they'd naturally be. With this in mind, you can now see that the scene has a better feel to it compared to the more cluttered and random scene that you saw before. This was also the same scene that got me to really pay attention to the lighting. With the overworld scene, I went with an almost golden hour lighting scheme that worked really well with it, but there wasn't much else to it. I wanted something a little bit more interesting and complex to work on, and I wanted to experiment with different color schemes as well. With that being said, that just about covers everything else for the scene, so let's go ahead and go to one of my latest works in progress. This is Rainbow Road. Like I said before, this is still a work in progress. The reason I am showing you guys this very early build is because of how much progress texturing has undergone with it. They're now being generated on top of the object and giving it realistic looking bumps and edges. This was possible due to something called nodes, which allow me to change the value of different properties on an object's surface. Now you may be thinking, well, that's cool and all, you know how to make a frickin' rock. What's so great about that? Well, this matters a lot because of what it could potentially create in the future besides crystals. From lava to forest grounds, it could allow each one of the scenes to take on a more lifelike feel while still remaining faithful to their original designs. Using nodes, I was able to create the rainbow crystal texture for the Power Star as well. This is currently the only actual model I have using nodes like this at the moment, and to me it looks a little bit better than the regular Power Star. That's pretty much all there is to talk about the Rainbow Road scene. This next scene is a little bit more interesting though. This is dubbed the enemy scene, which you can tell is full of enemies. This enemy scene is a concept scene I created for the project. These enemies will later be used in actual scenes, but for this specific shot, it was used to scale them appropriately relative to Mario, and to work with different perspective setups. Like the mushrooms, the leaves were also remodeled to look more realistic. These leaves were also the model I used for the bush and the pipe scene. Speaking of pipes, that brings us to the final model to talk about this entire scene and project in general, which is the pipe itself. I waited on talking about this model for last only because it was the actual first model that I had ever made besides the mushroom, so I felt fitting to talk about it here at the end of the video. This is the final version of the pipe that you've all seen. This one pipe has been remodeled over 15 times. That wasn't due to me messing anything up with it. It was actually due to the amount of improvement I have made in the short amount of time I've been working on this project. I've had to constantly upscale the model's resolution because of how much better everything else was looking around it. Looking back 3 months ago at the very first image of the scene, it really puts a lot into perspective as to how much I've managed to learn and create since then. It started with the pipe, and then expanded to an entire world that was going to be created behind it. As of the writing of this video script, I've gotten a drawing tablet, created some concept art for future scenes and assets, and I'm currently looking for a way to stitch all the scenes together to create one tour video. But as of right now, this is all that I can show you for this Super Mario project. Before we end the video, I just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support on not only the Bones video, which is over at 120k views and 4,000 likes. That's insane. The video is over a month old and is still doing really well, which is really nice. There is a new God of War edit coming out in the near future, so stay tuned for that. Also, let me know in the comments if you guys preferred me talking over videos like this, or if you guys would prefer shorter videos with little to no commentary. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.